just going to be in the... Hi, everybody. How's it going? Happy Tuesday, wherever you guys are dialing in from. Really excited to get started today. We're going to give folks a few more minutes to hop in here before we go ahead and get started. My name's Tyler, calling in from San Francisco right now from our headquarters here at Julius. Today's our onboarding webinar. We'll go through the basics of what Julius AI is, how to get started using Julius, some of the different tips and tricks and best practices for getting the most out of Julius, and then going through some of the frequently asked questions too. Those are all what we're planning on covering today, and then answering any other questions that you guys have. We'll also point you towards resources as well. We have both the Slack community and also documentation that we've been building out. And then like always, if you are watching this webinar recording, we have all of our previous webinars in our YouTube channel, and we also have our future webinars that are coming up both on our YouTube as well as our Luma. We'll go and give folks a few more minutes to trickle in as we get settled in here. Feel free to put any questions into the chat. I do not speak Italian, unfortunately. I do speak Spanish and German, but Italian is not one of my languages. But you can change the language of Julius's output. So that's something that we'll walk through on how to customize it. And then we have future webinars too, where we do ones in Spanish, and then also other webinars like our notebooks webinar and some of the other deep dives that we'll do typically. We do these every twice a week, and we actually do the onboarding webinar weekly, just so folks can really understand, hey, how can you get the most out of the product? Yeah, really excited to get started. Where is everyone dialing in from? I'm gonna open up a window real quick here. More sunlight in here. There we go. Cool. That being said, we'll go ahead and get started. I don't think there is a way. I just translated that. There's no way to get live subtitles, I don't think, on this, but we'll translate it afterwards, and then we'll attach the subtitles to the recording, if that's helpful. I'll go fairly slowly. Hopefully it'll be more showing than telling as we use Julius, but cool. The translation in Italian, I think there should be some way to customize it. Let's see if I could turn on... it doesn't look like I could turn on live subtitles on here, but we'll go pretty slowly, and I'll share through the thought process as we go along. That being said, let me change over my screen to the demo window. So whether you guys are first time hearing about Julius, or you're a returning user, or you're just looking to learn a little bit more about how to get the most out of Julius, this webinar is going to be perfect for you, right? Julius is your AI data analyst. You could think about all the work that any analyst typically does, any work that a data analyst does, from writing SQL to writing Python to pulling basic insights, generating visualizations. All of those things we've built into Julius to be able to handle for you guys, right? So you guys don't have to do any of that work yourself. It's not just a basic data analyst. If you're more advanced, if you have a lot of technical skills, maybe you are a machine learning engineer or you're a seasoned data veteran, right? Julius can also handle those use cases as well. So some of the more complex data analysis and sort of data exploration, and even some of the more advanced things like building ML models or test split evaluation and all these other building logistic regression models, all of these things are Julius is capable of doing, right? But in a nutshell, Julius is your AI data analyst. We have several plans that you can get started, and in fact, you actually don't even need a plan to get started. You could just click Try Julius for free, and we give you 15 free messages every month. Messages is how you interact with Julius. Anytime you tell Julius what you want, that's one message, and it'll send you a response back, and we'll walk through what that looks like today. Several ways for you to log in or sign up. I'm going to click Login here. You could sign up or log in with your Google, Apple, and then also with your email as well. Here I'm going to click with my Google, and I have my demo account here all set up and ready to go. This brings us to the UI, right? This is essentially what we call the chat interface or the threads interface. anytime you just want to get started using Julius, this is the best way. Really easy to just type in what type of analysis you're looking for or what type of visualization you're looking to make, and Julius will do that. Right? So this is our threads overface. Here we have the side panel, all of the other features that are built into Julius. We'll talk through these as we go along, but just showing you here, and including some of the different resources that you have. And on the right side, we have some settings, additional buttons, and then also our side panel on the right side, which I'll also talk about as we go through. That's the general overview of the layout of Julius. Pretty basic. And again, we'll build on this as we go along. Every single Julius account comes provisioned with a sandbox. This is a place for Julius to write and execute code. Typically, whenever someone, human or AI, does that, it requires two things. It requires CPU and it also requires RAM. Both of those we see over here in the upper left-hand button. If you click on connected, you can see the status of your sandbox and you can see your current RAM and CPU usage. This varies based off of the different plans that you're, whether you're subscribed on our free plan or you're on a paid plan like our Plus and Pro plan. But in general, like, you don't need too much RAM or CPU to analyze most files. I'll say 90% of files you can actually analyze using our free plan. But if you do need that extra processing power, you could always upgrade it, and that's what you see here with the additional resources as well. That being said, let's just go ahead and get started. The easiest way is to first add in the data, right? Maybe you have a spreadsheet, maybe you have a CSV, or maybe you have a JSON, right? I'm going to go ahead and click Upload File, and we're going to choose, let's say, one of these demo files that I have. Let's try out our sales transactions. Let's try this one. Julius is going to load and analyze the data right after you upload it. It's going to give us a small preview of the table that we have, so some of the example columns and some of the rows and the different formats of data that we have. It'll have different ways that you could automatically just dive into the data if you're not sure. So here, for example, we have how do total sales vary by product category each month? And on the right-hand side here, you'll actually see some notes as Julius has dove into the data, taken a look around and said, hey, this is a high-level understanding that this file contains detailed information about sales transactions, including customer and product details, for example. So right off the bat, we've just added in a file. We don't have to just do one file. You could do multiple files if you want. And you could also pull it in, not just from uploading, but from our data connectors too. So you could connect to your Google Drive, OneDrive, SharePoint, and also use that to upload and bring in data into Julius as some of the more basic ways to get started. Let's just ask a question. Let's say, can you show me sales over time? All right. Right when I press enter, Julius is going to think, hey, what's the best way for me to fulfill or answer that question? First thing you'll see it does is generate some Python. Python is some code that most data analysts will use when they're either doing some sort of analysis or building what they call notebooks. But here Julius does it all for us. It has a little explanation for what that code was that it just wrote. Here you can see this code snippet loads the sales data that we just uploaded, cleans it, and aggregates it. Here you can see some of the different files it had created. And then here it's actually going to what they call print or display the outputs, right? So here it's showing that analysis that I had just asked for. So that's sales over time. So here we have some ways it tried to visualize it. So daily sales over time, monthly sales over time, and then also some breakdowns, what they call data frames or just tables showing like, hey, this is the sales over time, the final amounts, for example. That's essentially the flow, right? You could go from adding in data, asking a question. Julius will write the Python code. It'll run the Python code, and then it'll display the results. And that's sort of the loop that happens when you're interacting with Julius over time. Now, how does this work, right? So if you're non-technical like myself, how does this actually work? I love using ChatGPT. I'm familiar with ChatGPT. It's somewhat similar, right? You could simply just type in any prompt, curiosity, any question that you have about your data into this bar, and then Julius will kick off that loop. It'll think about the prompt it needs to fulfill. It'll think through the code that it needs to display and run. It'll run the code and then show you the results. And that's how generally you can get started. I mentioned GPT-5. These are all the models that are available, right? So Julius has all of the most up-to-date models at its disposal to use for, this logic and the thinking behind that powers all of the analysis, right? This one that we just did uses GPT-5. You could also select GPT-5 Thinking. We also have Anthropic, which is another LLM provider as well that you could use. And then if you expand this menu, there's some of the older models that are perfectly fine to use, but that you could select there to do your analysis with. All plans will have the default model, which is actually a mix of both OpenAI and Anthropic's models, depending on what you're trying to do, right? That's the default model. It's actually one of my favorite models too. That being said, we'll just stick to GPT-5. If you're not sure which one to choose, just try them out, see which one you like. We also have some videos in our YouTube channel where we talk through and show like, hey, here's side-by-side comparisons of both of these models head to head. Same exact data, same exact prompt. How do they actually differ? You'd be surprised to see slight changes in the ways it either thinks or creates visualizations. While we're on this bottom bar, you can see some of the other tools at our disposal. We have a way for us to customize I'm going to close this. A way for us to customize the charts or those visualizations that we just created. If you're, doing scientific work or you're doing research work, maybe there's a specific way you want this formatted. We have some pre-built what we call chart themes here that'll customize these visualizations for you. We even have one for interactive charts. Maybe you love zooming in or diving into the data. Definitely give that one a try. That one's in beta. Maybe you're a night owl and you want dark theme charts. You can also choose that here as well. Or maybe you work at a university or you work at an enterprise and you have a really specific color and brand guidelines that you need to follow for either your presentations, both internally and externally. You can create your own themes here as well. You could simply change the colors, the background colors, the actually secondary colors as well. And you could add in different things like the different fonts you want Julius to use when creating visualizations. So there's a lot of customizability, and it's by design. We've built Julius from the ground up with data analysis in mind. And that's not just creating data analysis, but it's also for consuming data and visualizations too. So that's where chart themes comes in. A lot of other settings here. We'll talk a little bit more about these as we continue going, but let's just keep on analyzing this data set and diving in. Let's actually add in another file. I'm just going to upload a new one. Let's try out our product catalog. Again, Julius is going to load the data. It's going to dive into there and get some previews of the data and understand it. And here's where I could just say, let's see the product catalog versus sales. Maybe that'd be an interesting way. So maybe we can compare products and sales. And let's see how this works. So Julius is able to handle multiple files at once and multiple files in sequence if you do upload them later. And if there's a way to join files together, it can handle all of the joins. So joining means like, hey, I have a product CSV and I have a sales CSV. Maybe there's some way that we could join or combine those and analyze them both together. And in this case, Julius is going to take a stab at doing that, right? You'd imagine, hey, if I have something with sales, maybe I should have something related to products. So we'll see how Julius does. Again, Julius is going to write and execute this code here. Here you can see a little bit of an explanation about what it did. And then now it's printing out all the different results here too. So let me let it print, and then I'm going to scroll all the way back to the top here. So we see, hey, this is what that table has. It has some product names, product categories, for example. Here you can see it actually successfully joined the sales to the product catalog that we just uploaded. So you can see, hey, there's a lot of electronic sales, for example, not as many book sales and not that many clothing sales. And you can even see breakdown based off of product too. Here we see Julius was able to separate out the top 15 products by sales, etc. So it did figure out a way to join those tables together. So far, we've been fairly fortunate that Julius hasn't run into any bugs. Sometimes you might have Julius write some code and it just wasn't able to execute it. It might maybe something happened with one of the files, or maybe it got confused. No worry if that happens. Hopefully we'll encounter that today so we can walk through it together. But if that does happen to you, Julius is able to debug itself and think through, hey, let's backtrack a little bit and think through how we could actually rewrite the code or think about a different way to go about solving the problem without, you needing to debug it yourself too. So if you do run into any issues with Julius's prompts, 99% of the time, it will resolve it on its own. So we'll see if we encounter that today, but just throwing that out there. Awesome. So here we see the ways that it was able to combine both of those data sets. What we have here on the bottom are what we call suggested prompts. A lot of times when you first either upload data or you're exploring data, you don't really have an end goal in mind. Maybe you're just literally exploring and seeing what insights are out there or what metrics or things that you could find, some of the trends, right? If you simply click on one of these prompts, let's say calculate profit margins by category, we'll try this one out. Julius will actually just use that as the prompt and we'll try to fulfill it too. So a lot of times if you're just exploring data and you're not sure what the end goal is, you could use those to help go through and just explore the data a little bit more with some guidance too. While this is running, I'm going to actually expand open this right-hand panel over here, and I'm going to show you the Data Explorer. This is a very useful tool to have either open while you're using Julius or just in case you're curious about what's powering your data sets and powering your visualizations. You could think of the Data Explorer as like the library of all of the different files and tables that either Julius has uploaded, that you have uploaded to Julius, or that Julius has created and manipulated itself, right? So I'm going to scroll up here, and here you can see Julius took a look at the profit and margins by category. And I can actually click on this expand button over here, and you'll see the actual table over here in the Data Explorer. This is generally helpful for a few reasons. First, easy way for you just to double check what Julius is using to create these visualizations. Common question we get from folks is, how can I be sure that Julius is accurate or that these visualizations actually use the data? Well, easiest way, take a look at the Data Explorer, Very similar as if you were to go into Microsoft Excel or into Google Sheets, create a pivot table and create a visualization. That way, you could see the same exact visualization and tables that are powering those visualizations here in the Data Explorer. I'm going to scroll down a little bit here too, and then you can see Julius had computed the gross profit and margin by category and created 2 charts. And here it actually summarized what else it did. It merged sales and catalog costs, etc. Anytime it's doing some sort of calculations or is changing the data, similar to as if a human were to write a formula or to filter out certain tables, you could see all of that here in the Data Explorer as well. So that's another way that you could keep your eye on what Julius is doing, make sure that you have context on how these visualizations are created. And then also, if there's any questions that you have or any doubts about the accuracy of it, you'll know where to go by just looking at the Data Explorer here. While we're on that topic here, there's several other things that you could do with these data frames is what we call them. It's a fancy word for just a table that powers the visualization and analysis that Julius does. You could actually export it to a Google Sheet if you've connected your Google account. And you could even export it as a CSV or XLSX file, too, for you to either save for later or to import into your other tool of choice, whether it's Google Sheets or an Excel or something else, too. Awesome. Let's dive into some more data. Let's say, what else can we do? Let's do something really, really complex. Can you create a forecast of the next 6 months of sales and identify areas where we can do better, let's say, do better in terms of revenue and costs? Generally, really long prompts like this are doable, but sometimes it can trip Julius up, There's a lot of context that it needs to fulfill this. Maybe there's multiple steps that it needs to do. Best way to do this is by actually turning on advanced reasoning. This allows Julius to break down a really complex task into multiple steps. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually click on the reasoning button here in the side panel, and I'm going to click the prompt here. And you could see Julius is going to come up with a plan on how it should approach and fulfill this prompt. Here you can see all of those different steps that Julius had come up with. And now it's actually going to run through those in sequence and try to see if it can get and fulfill my prompt with these numbers of steps that it created. That's one of the ways that you could do this. I would say this is generally okay for fulfilling if you're what we call one-shotting a prompt, right? So one single prompt to do a lot of analysis. Nothing wrong with doing that. I would say though, if you're first getting started, I'll share with you guys after the webinar our prompting guide. Typically, it's best to break up a prompt into multiple steps. That way you can just track the progress as Julius goes on. But if you do want to try to do it all at once, I would advise turning on advanced reasoning for this. It does help out with breaking up really complex tasks. And the other cool thing about advanced reasoning is if anything, like I said before, goes wrong with the plan, Julius will actually adapt and adjust the plan too. It'll update maybe its approach, maybe it'll write some new code. It'll do all of that on its own, and we'll see how this works. All right, so it looks like it was able to go through the first 4 steps. It was able to load the data, prepare it, build a time series forecasting model, and then now it's actually generating the forecast and it's going to try to run through. This isn't too surprising, I would say. I think a lot of the more advanced and more recent GPT-5 models are actually pretty good at taking really complex tasks. And you can see this here in some of the forecasting it did. So here I'm going to scroll up a little bit. You could see some of the tables that Julius had generated. Forecast for the next 6 months, at least with this synthetic data that I have. And then scrolling all the way down, I asked it again for, hey, what are some ways that we can optimize? And here you can see Julius is even able to do stuff beyond writing code. It's able to say, hey, there's ways that you should focus on electronics, for example. That was pretty obvious from our earlier analysis that we had done. Maybe don't target books and sports because it's smaller. Focus on some of the lower margin categories and negotiating with suppliers here. So some business insights and some ways that we could optimize our strategy. And then even some quick wins. And we typically see this a lot. I think Julius has read every single data analysis textbook out there. And it's also read every single business textbook out there. All these models, they're trained on such a vast array of just data, right? If you do ask Julius for questions, it'll be able to give you the insights that you're looking for. But the one thing that is really helpful is if you explain, like, hey, I'm a marketer and I'm trying to optimize my marketing campaigns. Just giving it that little bit of context is enough for it to fine-tune its response to what you're looking for. Same thing for your business case. Maybe you're trying to solve a really specific problem. Giving that extra context to Julius, some of that what I call persona crafting with the models is really helpful. Just telling Julius a little bit more about what you're working on can't hurt at all. In fact, I think it really does improve the results as you're using Julius. Cool. Let's talk through some of the other tools that we have in our toolbox. Extended memory. So if, for example, I wrapped up my work today, I went to go hang up the old hard hat and I'm done, and I want to come back and do some analysis tomorrow or maybe weeks from now, it helps to turn on an extended memory to give Julius even more context and broaden what we call like the context window, which means that, hey, if there's a lot of threads ongoing that I have, maybe weeks ago, I talked about a specific use case I was trying to do or a specific formula that I want to use. Julius will be able to keep all of this in its extended memory when this is toggled on. You can think of it sort of like a backpack that Julius will carry around with it. It'll have all of your context throughout all of your conversations, just a little bit more than when this is toggled off. The other way that you can increase Julius's context and give it a little more customizability is by going into our settings panel and clicking the Customize Julius button. And here's where you can really add in some custom instructions, and this will be run anytime Julius is either coming up with code, generating any insights, or even doing anything to fulfill your prompt. It's going to have this instructions with it along the way. Here you can see some of the instructions that I've given Julius, mostly around creating visualizations. I told it that, hey, I like my millions like 1M, 2M, 3M, and thousands like 1K, 2K, 3K. Don't have to do this, but this is just personal preference. Another one I have here is when creating visualizations, avoid overlapping text or labels. Common issue that I've seen. A lot of times these models can't really see what they're generating. We have to act like their eyes, so I just add this in. And one other one I have in here is don't ask for confirmation, just proceed with your plan of action. I want Julius to just take my analysis and run with it. I'd rather it do that than ask me like, hey, is this okay to run? And I'll be like, yeah, of course, just do it. I'd rather that. So these are my custom instructions. When we talked earlier, I know that we have a viewer from Italy. You could change the language of Julius here as well. You could say, hey, turn all of my results into this language, or hey, I want you to respond to me using Spanish, Greek, Italian, French, everything. And then all the different analyses and insights that Julius generates will all be in that language too going forward. A couple other customizability that I'll touch on briefly. We have obviously the way to turn from light mode to dark mode. The same model selector that I talked about before, you could change here as well. And then some other cool features like showing code by default. You could turn this off if you just, hey, I don't care about the code Julius is writing. You could have learn from feedback, which is a new feature that we're working on right now, which lets you calibrate Julius to what you're working on. And then even things like, hey, I want you to search the web to help emphasize my results, or do a little bit more research about the results too. Something that you can toggle on and off there. There's several other key settings that we have in here, like learn instructions and secret keys. Those are a little bit more advanced. I'm not going to really touch on those today. If you are curious, you could join our webinar on Thursday where I'll touch on those a little bit more, or you could check out some of the recordings that we have or videos in our YouTube channel too, where we touch on these a little bit more niche settings that we've built out for folks over time. Let's say I'm done with an analysis and, hey, how do I actually share these, or how can I actually get this to be useful for either myself, my team, or my company, right? Let's show this button up here is the Generate Analysis Report button. Common question that we get from folks is, hey, I want to send all of those key insights and visualizations to my head of marketing or maybe to my operations leader, but I don't really want to send them my prompts I used or the code that Julius had generated. Well, that's where this button comes and helps out with that. You could essentially redact away all of those in-the-weed details like the prompts, the code, and then any of the sort of miscellaneous things that really don't belong, and will purely extract the visualizations and any of the key insights and summary for you to share in a PDF format. So here you can see that all that work that we've done in this webinar was summarized into an executive summary. Those visualizations as well, those sales over time, if you remember that from before. Sales by product category and product. We have breakdowns of margins. And then finally, ways for us to identify trends and forecasts too. All of that inside of this report. You can share this URL with someone, and then they could access the same exact report within Julius. You could even edit it if you want to. All of this is Markdown that you can customize and update automatically inside of Julius. This was released really recently. I really love this feature. It's really cool. You could save it, and then more importantly, you could download and save as a PDF for you to share as well too. So one of the most highly used buttons within Julius that we found out recently. And that's because people want to not just create insights and visualizations and analysis, but they also want to consume it too. So there's that. Cool. Some other things. So this Thursday, we have a webinar coming up. That's where we'll talk about notebooks. High level, you could think of a notebook as a little bit more advanced Julius. It's built for repeatability and really easy iteration on your analysis, much more than what we were just doing in threads. Again, I would say threads are a great way for you to first get started and sort of scratch that itch of needing basic insights. But for anything that you want to do more in depth or over time, or do it again and again and again, or potentially schedule an automatic analysis to be run for you, do all of that within a notebook. We'll cover this in detail, but I'll just share with you an example of what a notebook looks like. Here, a notebook is simply a collection of different, what we call like cells or prompts. And it's exactly the same as interacting with Julius, except it's easier to iterate over time. And we'll cover that on Thursday if you are curious. But I would say it's a little bit more advanced feature, but we have a lot of resources that we've built out to help with folks as well. We have some notebook templates here that you could explore. These are all of the different sort of use cases that we've been asked, like, hey, can Julius do X, Y, or Z? And we've actually built these out, and the Julius team has built these, and also folks in the community have built those as well. So for example, acquisition channel efficiency analysis. Maybe you're analyzing your marketing data or your ad spend. You can actually use this pre-built notebook. All you have to do is connect your data and have the analysis done for you. The other things that we have at our disposal are our documentation. So if you go to our side panel here and you click on the documentation, a lot of guides here that have been built out, including a quick start guide and some videos that we've collected together as a package for you to go through. Again, it covers a lot of what we covered in today's webinar, but a little bit more in depth on ways that you can get started. And then also all of the different features and settings that I talked about are all outlined here, including data connectors, which we cover in other webinars, but it's just another way for you to add data into Julius. Teams, notebooks, etc. are all inside of our documentation too. The other place that you can go for help or for resources is our community Slack. Definitely take a look here. This is our place for everyone to just come in and ask questions, whether it's to the Julius team or to folks in the community as well. Great place for you to see some questions that other folks are asking, different use cases where they're using Julius in their day-to-day, or also just any other questions or just random thoughts that are going on. Always cool to see and hear about what folks are working on, whether it's related to Julius or not, inside of our Julius community Slack. And then finally, if there are any other outstanding questions that you just aren't sure about, one thing that you can do is click on the 3 dots in the upper right-hand corner, click on the help button, and this will open up our intercom. So you guys can message us directly through this by creating tickets. Or you could even message us at team@julius.ai, and this will go to our intercom as well, and you could chat with us through email if that's what you prefer. The last common question that we get from folks is about data privacy and data security. And I'm actually going to click on this right here. This is our trust center for Julius, and you can see all of our different policies for how our compliance, whether we're on our SOC 2 Type 2, most recent audit reports, also our progress on GDPR, which we're completing shortly. And then also if you do want access to our SOC 2 Type 2 audit report, you can click that here, and then you can also ask for any of our security one-pagers and other documents here as well in our Trust Center. With that being said, hopefully, I know this is quite a lot of information, but hopefully that's not too much for you guys to get started. I will follow up after the call with a code for you guys to use for Julius Pro for 5 days for free, just as a thank you for first tuning into the webinar, but also for just trying out Julius. It'll give you access to all the latest models and all the more advanced features that we have built out, as well as no message limit that is typically with our free plan. And then I'll also share with you guys the prompting guide that I had mentioned, how to get started, some of the different tips and tricks for getting started using Julius. And then I'll share what else? I think those are the main 2 things I'll share with you guys after the call. Cool. Brian asking, any plans to integrate into Facebook API as a data connector for Facebook ads? Yeah, there is. I don't want to overpromise, but I would say it should be done within the next week or maybe 2 weeks. It's something that we've built out. We're just trying to make sure we iron out all of the kinks before we release it. But one of the data connectors that we do have currently is our Meta or our Google ads that you can see here. Actually, is it live? It might be live right now. Hey, what do you know? We have our Google ads here, and then we also have our Meta ads. And I think this will prompt you to, yep, exactly, log into Facebook, and then you can connect any Meta ads account as well to start building out. Always a nice surprise to see that a feature is live. That's how fast the team's been moving here with these data connectors. I wasn't sure if it's going to be live yet, but definitely give it a try and let us know your thoughts. I'm really excited for that. I know the team's been really hard at work. A lot of back and forth with the team. Interesting. Where did it go? That's interesting. It's gone now. Let me know if you don't see it. Feel free to reach out. I think that's enough to say that, hey, it would be released. The fact that I did see it for a second, maybe just going back, it made it disappear, but here it is again. It's here. Let us know your thoughts. So far, it's been really cool. We did this in the last webinar, but you could do really cool things like analyze your return on ad spend, also your customer acquisition costs, anything related to your ads. Julius can actually analyze it. It's really, really cool. And the other cool thing that we've done is we actually use it internally to actually manage our campaigns for us. It could do keyword research. It could look at the volume for specific keywords and then optimize your campaigns there. That's specifically for Google Ads, but it really does depend on what you're running on the meta ad side. Cool. Sam's asking, what is considered a message? So anytime that you are basically typing into the bottom bar and just sending that, pressing enter, that counts as one message, right? So all these different prompts, I would say throughout this whole entire webinar, I sent probably 4 messages total. Likewise, whenever you're clicking on any of the suggested prompts down below, that Julius will run that as a prompt, and that'll be one message as well. Free plans get 15 free messages every month, and this restarts on the 1st of every month. Pro plans get unlimited, and the Plus plan gets 250 messages per month as well. Cool. Modern Era is asking, can it run pivots? I run into it always just giving instructions. It should be able to run pivots from what I've seen. I'm not sure if you mind clarifying the second part to your question. Is that Julius just like giving you instructions like this, or like asking for clarification, or saying like, hey, I could do it? I've seen that. If it is that, I've seen that quite recently. Instead of just creating it, yeah, it can. The one thing, and I think it is with GPT-5, it's one of the things with these newer models that come out, is there's a lot of tuning that we have to do after we add it. One thing that you can do, so for example, you can see this right here, this last prompt it sent, want me to, and then it just asks me these instructions. Typically, I'll just have to either forcefully say like, hey, just do it, right? Just say like, hey, create the pivot. Like, don't ask for confirmation or for permission to do it, just do it. So it can do those. I think if you're using GPT-5 or even the default model, which might use GPT-5, it's a little bit more willing to ask for instructions or ask for confirmation before you do it. So that's one way, is just say like, just do it, you know? You could bake that into the prompts too. So you could say like, hey, create the pivot table for me. Do not ask for permissions or for confirmation, just do it. That also helps, I've seen, but that's kind of a lot of work. The other workaround is to go into your settings over here in the upper right, go to Customize Julius, and you can see I actually have it built in here. Do not ask for confirmation, just proceed with your plan of action. Something with the GPT-5 model, they've done something with the way it just asks for permissions, or it's a little bit more hesitant to do stuff on its own. I think a lot of times it's also because it creates a pretty thorough plan of action, and doing all of it would be kind of unwieldy. So it asks like, hey, which one of these should I do? So I found this to be fairly helpful and cut down a little bit more on it being kind of indecisive, but that's less of a GPT-5 or less of a Julius thing for now, as we continue to just sort of iron out the way that we prompt with GPT-5 too. So that should help as well. I've seen other users also do things like add things in brackets. Like if you just do this and nothing else, it's a common way I've seen folks really just emphasize just doing it. Don't do anything else. But really, Julius shouldn't have any issues creating any pivot tables for you. I think just the issue that I've seen recently is just the lack of, lack of not urgency, but initiative from the latest model. We really didn't experience this too much with the O3 and 4.0 models, but I've seen it quite recently with GPT-5, but the prompt does help. Cool. Any other questions from folks or anything top of mind? Any other topics that you guys would like to cover while we have another minute or so? Again, we do these webinars twice a week. So if you guys are looking for something to join on Thursday or just want to tune in, we'll go through how to build a notebook from scratch. We'll actually cover one of the new features that we're going to be announcing on Thursday, which is our ability to schedule notebooks. Just a little bit of a sneak preview, but we'll go into that in depth. Meta Ads Connector is showing up. Nice. Okay, cool. Not sure if it was just me or if that was just a bug, but yeah, that's awesome. Just give it a try. You know, I think today might be the first day that we've actually had it public. So really excited to see how that picks up. And then we'll do a formal announcement probably next week too. Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining. Always love just connecting with users and just showing what Julius is capable of. Again, a few follow-ups I'll send via email as a thank you. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys in the next webinar. Hope you have a great rest of your morning, evening, or night, wherever you're dialing in from, and we'll see you at the next one. Bye.